My wife, daughter, and I recently moved into our dream home. We wanted to buy a century build, a place with its own stories, a place with its own memories, a place that had witnessed a lot of history. We looked at several houses, but most needed a lot of expensive restoration work or were far outside of our price range. So when we found this house, beautiful, filled with upgrades including a finished basement and actually affordable, we didn't hesitate and made an offer on the spot. It was a red brick 2-story with lots of windows, enough gardening that we could still manage, and even a white picket fence. Inside, high ceilings and walls painted in light, earthy tones, and the floors and stairs were a dark hardwood. The house was upgraded, tastefully decorated, and with a manageable yard. The upkeep wouldn't overwhelm us. In short, it was a dream come true. After unpacking for a few days, we invited a few good friends over for a housewarming barbecue. My 8-year-old daughter, as always, was the star of the party, telling silly jokes and just being the goofy, over-the-top kid that she is. As the evening wore on, she crawled into my wife's lap, her eyes half closed and her head drooping. "I'm going to get her into bed," my wife said. While she did that, my friends and I went into the kitchen and started some general cleanup. We started that tradition a while ago, trying to make sure the host didn't get left with all the mess. It's funny how you think of those kinds of things, those little courtesies, when you all get older and start having kids. Honestly, I'd far rather have help cleaning up than have another bottle of wine or a set of hand towels. A few minutes later, my wife came back downstairs and joined us all in the spacious kitchen. "Already done?" I asked. She nodded, passed out cold as soon as her head hit the pillow. "Still, maybe we should move to the living room in a few minutes so we can watch the stairs." "She's still sleepwalking?" one of our friends asked. "Not as often," I said, "but since it's a new house, we're being extra careful." Ever since my daughter transitioned to sleeping in her own bed, she'd been a sleepwalker. There never seemed to be any real reason behind it, like no night terrors or stress or anything. Her sleepwalking was just one of her quirks we'd gotten used to. Thankfully, she'd never fallen or done anything scary like leave the house. Also, all you usually did was give her a gentle reminder like, "Go back to bed," and while still fast asleep, she'd somehow managed to register those words and turn right around and head back to bed. Sure enough, as we left the kitchen and moved to the living room, I glanced up the stairs and saw little bare feet on this top step. "Go back to bed, sweetheart." Her feet turned and went back upstairs. "Already?" my wife asked. "Yeah, it's probably because of all the excitement still going on. I'm sure she'll settle down." My daughter rarely sleepwalked late into the night, only the first 2 or 3 hours after going to bed. I always have joked that I hoped she would grow out of it before becoming a teenager who stayed up way later than I did. Our little group now in the living room. I took a chair that I could still see the stairs through the banister on my left-hand side. With everyone settling into the chairs and sofa in the living room, I thought I heard a light creak from above us. "Go back to bed." Again, I turned my head to the left and caught just a glance at her retreating footsteps. It seemed she'd come down a few more steps this time. Our friends, my wife and I, continued to chat for a while about life, work, and plans. About 10 minutes later, one of my friends smiled and nodded toward the stairs beside me. I turned to fully face the stairwell. She'd come further down the stairs this time. I was beginning to think that perhaps my daughter was maybe more awake than we thought, and just playing another goofy game. Even for her worst sleepwalking nights, this was getting a bit much. "Go back to bed, sweetheart." She hesitated on the steps a moment. Her one foot inched forward toward the next step down. "Go to bed," I said, a little more forcefully. Her foot returned back to its original position on the step. Then she turned around and went back upstairs. "Hey, hon, did you get her a new nightgown?" Turning back to the group, I asked my wife. She shook her head. "No, she's wearing that ratty old yellow one we should have thrown away months ago." "Oh, guess it's just the light. I thought it looked new." I puzzled a bit to myself as the conversation started up with the inevitable "you must be getting old" jokes. Though I could have sworn her nightgown looked different, more frilly around the hem, and maybe her feet looked a little bit pale. Could she be sick? Maybe the excitement of the move and guests had worn her out more than my wife and I had thought. I looked back to the stairs, worrying that maybe my daughter truly wasn't feeling well, and half expecting to see those bare feet and nightgown hem. But this time, there was nothing there. Should I go check? Kids can be difficult to read sometimes. You think they're doing something odd or misbehaving, but they want you to notice something. A new haircut, a new outfit, a new bruise, or that they don't feel well. Funny how kids can blurt out the craziest stuff, but when they want to be noticed, they can become frustratingly indirect. I left my chair, thinking a little pique wouldn't make me look like an overprotective helicopter father. "Hey," one of our friends said, "are you heading to the kitchen?" Yeah, sure, what do you need?" Maybe I wasn't that worried after all. The second someone called me out, I changed course with barely a thought. Kids are resilient. I was probably just overreacting. "Could you get me another drink?" Sure thing. Same again?" My friend said yeah, and I nodded as I made my way to the kitchen. Before getting there, I caught sight of her little feet again. She was further down the stairs now, almost halfway. I could see just above the waist of her nightgown out of the corner of my eye. "Go back to bed," I said with a sigh, and without even looking. Instead, I just stopped in place and waited to hear her light steps going back up. I moved into the kitchen and went to the fridge. Sure enough, we had managed to go through all the drinks and pop we had stocked the kitchen fridge with earlier in the day. Luckily, when we had bought the house, I had grand visions of making the basement a proper recreation room down the road, a place that we could hang out, play video games, or watch movies. So we'd put a small fridge in there and stocked it with extra drinks and snacks. It wasn't much yet, but hey, it was a start in my mind. I turned toward the hallway door that was just outside of the kitchen that led to the basement steps. Flicking on the light, I headed down. At the bottom of the stairs, I stopped, an icy chill clawing down my spine. As I said, we had done little with the basement so far. Just a small fridge, the old couch my wife and I had bought when we first moved in together, and a bunch of the moving boxes we didn't feel like dealing with for a while. My breath caught in my throat. Snuggled on the couch lay my daughter, in her ratty, old, yellow nightgown, eyes closed, her breathing deep and steady, sound asleep. She must have come down when we were all busy cleaning and joking around in the kitchen. But then I turned, adrenaline and terror fueling my run back up the steps and down the hall, my socked feet sliding to a stumbling stop on the hardwood floor as I came to the bottom of the upstairs stairs and face to face with her. She'd made her way to the bottom last few steps this time. And this was obviously not my daughter. Based on the black sockets where her eyes should have been, the bluish-gray tinge to her skin, and the fact I could make out details of the stairwell by looking through her, this girl was not even alive. I heard concerned voices as my wife and friends tried to make sense of my flight down the hall to the stairs. Their concern turned to gasps when their eyes finally saw what I was seeing. Well, I suppose that's a good thing. I wasn't hallucinating. Or, actually, maybe it would have been better to be hallucinating. None of us screamed. It was like the presence she exerted and the shock of seeing her robbed us of any kind of sound or action. All we could do was stare. The girl turned her blank, empty sockets toward me, expectantly. What could she want? Was she looking for something? What? Oh. Of course. I swallowed hard. Go back to bed. My dry throat finally creaked out. She smiled, turned, and skipped up the stairs with a childish giggle that hung in the air long after she disappeared from sight.